Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond, Green Chambers in London. I'm looking today at an excellent book from Waterside Press. Waterside Press have as their banner headline, Putting Justice into Words. And I think it's quite interesting. They deal with a lot of books on criminology. And this one is about actually looking really more at the theoretical aspects of criminology, but not in a very refined sense. But it's called American Evil. It's a paperback. The Psychology of Serial Killers, and it's been written by Dr Eric Cullen. I have a lot of misgivings about how much stuff we should get concerning killers, people who've committed a serious homicide, because there is this very great danger over centuries now to glorify and put on pedestals people who are nothing more than common criminals with massive hatred and very few redeeming features. It's a problem. It's never going to go away because it sells newspapers and it makes good media feed. But the difficulty is that you've got to get the balance somewhere, and this book is trying to look behind the mask, if you like, at what's really going on. In this case, it's American issues. I've given the title of our book review, A Contemporary Review of the Effect Serial Killers Have on Society. Let's look at the book first of all. It's only a small paperback. There it is. There's the spine, and you can see here there's some blurb on the back. Now, the book itself, it's not a long book. It goes in 200 pages. There is some advertising material about some of the other books in Waterside Press publish. They do cover the really serious killers of the past. And, you know, it's useful to have the information, although I have, as I say, I have a concern about it. There's the index, which is by page numbering at the back. It's not a big index, but it's useful. There is also some selected references, in other words, a bibliography of sorts. And then you've got a summary at the back. Cullen says, I have come to the end of my limited and admittedly flawed polemic. I believe serial killers are made and not born. I believe further that the overwhelming majority of serial killers are American because of the environment in which they are raised. Again, very important points. Some people won't agree with that, but however, it's an important submission. There is the front page. And then we get from there, you can get the information there. Then you've got the table of contents, which are set out, an introduction, then looking at a range of killers, some of whom are really appalling, some of whom come from this country as well. Of course, you can see some of the names here. And then there are conclusions. The conclusions, I think, will be of great interest, of course, to the criminologist. You've then got a publisher's note saying that these opinions are his own, and then you've got an acknowledgement from various people to thank Brian Gibson. I'd like to thank Brian Gibson from Waterside Press as well, because it takes a lot of courage to produce some of these books, because some of the people concerned really are absolutely appalling. There's the introduction. There's just a picture of Dr Cullen, which you can probably just see there, and just running it through, you can see that chapter 4 is dealing with Israel Keyes, thrill killer, and it gives you, with each of the people he's looking at, it gives you an indication, or tries to give, I suggest, perhaps a bit of an explanation about why these people are serial killers, and of course the word psychology comes into mind. So what I've done is I've taken the basis of the quotes about the book, because as I say, I have reservations about the effectiveness of some of these books, but I do believe Waterside Press get the balance right, because they produce books which are informative, not too sensational, but they're trying to deal very much with an issue which of course has a tremendous amount of public appeal. Of course, the issue which Cullen comes up with here is how serial killers are made. That's why he comes to a conclusion at the end. It says, how are they made? It's been the subject, of course, regularly of comment, and it has been ignored by mainstream media, who sometimes revel in what are quite often sordid and sickening details of why some humans kill other humans. And that really is my starting point, because I welcome the paperback from Waterside, because they are actually, I think, looking at this in a very mature way, because this issue is never going to go away. You're always getting, you just have to put the television on, and then there's another horrific killing. And sometimes they are serial killers in the sense of either some sort of religious reason, some sort of sadistic reason, but there are a lot of very complex reasons as to why people do these things. And Cullen deals with the sordid world of serial killers. I think he does it very professionally. He looks at their calculating methods and the distorted thinking they display, and he bases it around his groundbreaking work as a prison psychologist, a government advisor and a consultant on 3 TV series, including the Voices of the Serial Killer, which I have to say I haven't seen. Now, this title of this book, and of course the other titles that he's used, come from clinical experience of killers. It's not an area I would wish to be involved in. I've had to do 1 or 2 cases which have been highly unpleasant, and it's therefore not an area that I'm happy with at all as a lawyer. But the fact is that there are a lot of people that have to be represented, and we have to try to understand what has happened. And what we've got here is the inclusion of a selection of both American and British serial killer studies. And as I say, some of them will be of interest, because you will have read the press coverage and be interested to know what is being said here by an expert. Because what we do is we have here an exposition of what the police do and the other failings and shortcomings that have happened, and the perversity of defences raised by these maniacs, and excuses, oh, she asked for it, or whatever it might be, or whatever the reason is to justify comes out. Now, the question I've then got is, should we know about that, or should this be left to purely very dry, dusty academic terms? The answer is no, because the public are interested to know, and you have a right-wing view which wants people hanged or executed for what they've done, and then you have people like myself who tend to be of a more liberal persuasion, who do not believe in executing people, but do feel that there must be some way to look at why we've got this problem in the first place, because rehabilitation obviously would be the one thing that must be looked at. And high on the list of criticisms, of course, is USA gun law, and of course the attitudes or perspectives which make for what is described as an unhealthy environment, a moral vacuum, and a lack of official or individual awareness and responsibility. And of course, during the pandemic, COVID-19 virus that we've had the problem with, you've had a huge increase in the amount of purchases of armaments in America, which is very disturbing, because there could be, bearing in mind what's happening at the moment, a long-term effect on that. So what we've got here in Cullen's book is a description of how he was so profoundly moved, as he says, by the inescapable conclusions that serial killers are made, and he was compelled therefore to set out his findings. Obviously it's useful to have his view because he's got a lot of experience bemoaning the serial killer growth industry, the unhealthy interest and the ill-informed comments that we get. He tries to set the record straight, and I think he does so reasonably well, because serial killers are made, not born is his basic thesis. I sometimes wonder with some of the people I've seen, because I think about it and I think about their parents, being a teacher as well as a barrister. I've seen the parents at the parents' evenings, and you understand the children a lot more when you see the parents, so you can see it from different points of view. But the central polemic of the book is that the serial killer is one of several, the concept of the serial killer and what he or she does is one of several malign human byproducts of what he describes as a dysfunctional modern permissive society, overwhelmingly American, brought about by modern day culture in the United States. Lax moral standards are also covered by him to reflect in other countries the extent to which they pursue a comparable way of life. Now, again, That's his point of view. I think there's a great deal of value to be gleaned as a criminologist, get it right, from what he puts forward. I do tend to go more towards the point that they're made, not born, and made by the society they're in. Think Bonnie and Clyde, think of some of the other appalling people, think of the Old West and the difficulties there. I can see those problems. Think of our country, Jack the Ripper and the Masons. Think of all the other problems that we've got. You can see lots of excuses, but the bottom line is they've killed. And once you've killed, you can't bring that person back. It's as simple as that. From the introduction, as this is really a conclusion rather than an introduction, Cullen says this: the simple fact upon which much of my argument is based is that America has only 4.2% of the world's population, yet over 2/3 of all the world's known serial killers to date. I believe this is a direct result of the environment in which they're raised. A lot of people would agree with that, but there will be one or two people who say, well, that's fine because we keep figures and the other countries don't. It's like saying, how many people have got the coronavirus? Well, we know in the free world, but we don't know if they haven't kept records. We don't know in Asia, we don't know in Russia, we don't know in China the full extent, because it's either hidden through omission or done deliberately. However, the point is, there is a problem. We still have not dealt with the remedy for that problem, and that's a long way off. The date of publication of the paperback edition is the 30th of September 2020, and I'm recording it actually the day after it's actually been published. There's the book again, the spine and then the back, the opening it in the middle. John Wayne Gacy, he's a name that you will know. Ted Bundy is mentioned at the back. Ted Bundy for the last time, appalling man. And you've also got, oh yes, you've got Aileen Wuornos, who's executed, of course. Then you've got Levi Belfield, one of the UK killers. Again, it took a long time to get these people prosecuted. And I'll say about Belfield as a final point, I've met people who covered the trial. They were not lawyers, they were journalists, and they were absolutely appalled by what they saw in the courtroom. Not what they read, but what they actually saw. Again, the reason Cullen's book is so good is because he's actually seen these people. And the difficulty that I think many people have is they read a small amount about what's happened and they don't understand the big picture. Big thank you to Dr. Cullen and to Waterside Press for another fascinating book. Bye-bye.